Welcome back, everybody, to the Denver Dzogchen podcast. I'm here once again with Joseph Wagner, and today we're going to talk about setting up a daily practice. This is so crucial. The foundation to everything in a Dharma life is having a daily practice. But I know for myself and almost everybody who gets started on this, it can be hard, right? The going against the grain, as we talked about in the previous episode, is always hard. Setting up a new habit. But the thing that's really come clear to me that's really helped is to remember that's not a discipline. It's a relationship, right? We're developing a relationship to something new. And so if you want to develop a relationship with a person or with the Dharma and the lineage, you have to spend time together. So I think that's really what this is about. And Joe, you've got a really excellent daily practice and have for many, many years. So maybe you could tell us about how you developed it, what it looks like, and how our listeners can really have something like that.
Man. Yeah, happy to, and welcome to everyone. Happy to be back here. This is fun. I think the first thing, I did it because when I got into meditation, it felt like this is what I need to be doing. So I've been sitting every day since 1988. It was easy for me to get going. I was in college, and I was like, I don't know, trying to be interesting to myself or whatever. But when I talk about this now, I have a different way of looking at it, slightly different. And that might be helpful to our listeners. The way I look at it is we only have today. I've been waking up for 56 years and I have yet to be able to have it be tomorrow when I wake up. It's always today. And as a result of that, it's very important to recognize, it's like this screen right here. My hand's up here above where you can see. When I
Forgive me.
getting distracted there. When you wake up in the morning, you come out of nowhere, right? Where were you 2 seconds before you woke up? No body, no thoughts, no nothing. You just pop in. And if you're paying close attention, then you notice that right at the beginning of waking up, you don't even know who you are. You have absolutely no thoughts. You're just like, and then here it is, like little bits of snow falling on you. Oh yeah, I've got to do that today. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, work. Oh my gosh, I got to do this. And there's that doctor's appointment. And then all of a sudden your life is back. But you realize you come out of nowhere. And then here comes your karma. And then you're like, oh yeah. And when you fall asleep at night, where do you go? You go no place. So we really only have today. Thinking about this has made a lot of stuff possible for me because I probably can't, go to the gym every day for the rest of my life. That sounds like an incredible thing I have to do. Or in my case, Damien and I talked in a previous episode about being vegan. Hard to think you'll never eat another croissant. You'll never have another pizza. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot. But today I'm okay with not having a croissant. And then those days stack up and it becomes a habit. Tulku always said, practice is a habit just like distraction is a habit. So we're changing it. And in the beginning, you have to be super conscious. So you have there's a period when you first wake up for about at least 5 minutes for most people. Unless if you don't have 5 minutes when you wake up, then you got to change your life, right? That's called turn the clock, 15-minute earlier alarm and you're good, right? To make a daily practice, you don't need 2 hours, right? You really need if you have 5 minutes, you can definitely do it and it will build on itself. You don't want to make it like, gotta meditate an hour or it's not worth doing. That's a crazy attitude. If you sit down and you do the 3 parts, which we'll talk about as part of the daily practice in a second, then you did it. So the main thing is to recognize when you first wake up, you can do anything. The road is wide. You can do anything with today. And the first thing you got to do is immediately meditate because otherwise, you'll get caught up, right? The phone and the stuff and the worry and the plan and the kids and the stuff. So the first thing to do is recognize you do have agency. It doesn't last very long, but you've got 5 or 10 minutes of agency there. And if you direct it to your cushion, you're going to meditate that day. And then at the end of the day, you're like, well, what did I do today? I freaking meditated. I'm a meditator. Because you're a meditator if you meditated today. Even if you practice 30 years in a row, if today you didn't practice, are you a practitioner? I don't know. So I think that's the way I first look at it.
Yeah. And I've developed this rule for myself as I've gotten into adulthood, like as a kid, it was super hard for me to have any discipline about anything, teenager, even early 20s. But eventually I just learned, do all the hard shit first. Just get it all done first. Then one, you can relax. Then I'm free, which actually you get kind of addicted to this feeling of like, okay, I've done all the things and now I can like chill and I can enjoy my day. And you enjoy your day more when you know you've done all those things and they're not haunting you, right? Like those things haunt you. The days you don't do the things that are important to you, you've on some level, you've wasted some time that you have in this precious human birth. And just like Joe said, when you do something first thing, so I think as a Dharma practitioner, this is a non-negotiable. It's got to be first thing. It really does, because it sets the tone for absolutely everything else you're going to do with your day. And this is also, like Joe said, start small. And then I was saying in the beginning, develop a relationship. This has become something that you fall in love with and want to spend more and more time. And there's, of course, a little bit of like pushing yourself, right? Like you can challenge yourself to go a little bit longer, to spend a little more time. And that's really helpful. But if you make it into something you hate, you'll fail. But it's a guarantee. That means you've had a bad relationship with the Dharma, right? That's the worst thing you could do. You want to set yourself up to have a good relationship to the Dharma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly right. You want set it up for success. That's why shorter periods are better. When I teach at a yoga studio on Wednesday nights, and it's just some practitioners, but a lot of people who don't know anything about meditation, or they do some yoga, they want to have a practice. I always say you need 1 minute, and it has 3 parts, the 3 excellences. Is it okay if we talk about that now? If you have these things, then the relationship that you have is, first of all, it's intact and solid. And secondly, it will naturally grow. And those things are so easy. If you are a Buddhist practitioner, frame it in both ways, because some of our listeners, they're interested, but they're not necessarily Buddhists, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. They're just two different ways. The first thing is you got to get on that cushion. And it doesn't matter if your cushion is your bed. I certainly think for repeatability, it's good to invest in yourself. And you need to invest in a zabuton, which is the big flat cushion, and then a zafu, some kind of like cushion to sit on, keep your hips high. Almost all of us need that. Even if you've been sitting a long time, you need to have slightly elevated hips to have your back straight. Everybody knows this. But if by having that, by investing, that can be like $150. It's not nothing. Maybe you can buy it used, but whatever. By putting money in it, you're like, I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to do this, and then you put that in a place that it doesn't have to move around. Sit in the same place every day. Then you start to see that same view, whether it's a window or a wall, it doesn't matter. Remember, Bodhidharma faced the cave for 9 years, cave wall, nothing interesting there. So you don't think, oh, I can't do this because I don't have a beautiful view. And doesn't matter at all. You can sit in the dark. It doesn't make any difference. You just have to be in the same place every day. First is to get to your cushion. Secondly is to give rise to the thought, I am so lucky I want to be here. I'm so lucky. I'm just so lucky, right? You could be under arrest. You could be in jail. You could be sick. All these things are not happening, and you are choosing to do this. Amazing. That's the first thing, because then you sort of feel like you're doing something really noble. Wow, this is great, and you're more likely to repeat it. That gets addictive. We have to use addiction, to benefit us in this case. And the second thing, this is if you're not a Buddhist practitioner, you just have to think, I'm going to do this for the good of everyone. I'm going to experience peace for everybody, which is what meditation's about, right? That's called the first excellence, or the right orientation. And if you are a Buddhist practitioner, then those first two things are the same. You sit down and feel grateful. You still have to get to your cushion, and you still have to give rise to great joy or gratitude. And then you take refuge, you give rise to bodhicitta, the standard things. And if, the bodhicitta aspect for non-practitioners is, I'm doing this for everybody. I'm going to abandon my interest in this ridiculous life, and I'm going to be at peace for all beings. Wow, that's incredibly noble. Right? Incredibly powerful. Makes you sit up a little straighter, and it makes your day worth it. No matter what happens the rest of the day. Maybe you're heading into the worst day of your life, but you meditated, so it wasn't all bad, and that's all we can really do, right? And then, well, that's how you get there. That's the beginning, the first excellence. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, having an altar has always been an important part of my practice. So if you're a Vajrayana practitioner, making some offerings, lighting a candle, offering some incense, grounds your sacred world in your physical experience. So I found that to be a very helpful. Humans are very ritualistic, most of us. Some people don't like that, and that's fine. But for Vajrayanists, we're into all of that stuff, right? So we anchor our experience in this sacred reality, right? Like we're anchoring ourselves, just like you said, towards samsara, kids, job, work, family, all the things I have to do today. We're taking refuge in that world. That's called taking refuge in samsara. So we want to instead shift and say, no, we're going to take refuge in the enlightened mind. And then we have all of these statues and tankas and beautiful things that you feel a connection to that are a way of representing this different point of view. And it's a little bit like feeding your kids or your family, right? Like by offering incense and a candle, you're making a relationship. You're building a relationship. Like Trungpa Rinpoche called merit really relational energy, right? So, and I think that's a good way to look at it. Not an accumulation, not a self-worth discipline code, not that. It's you're investing in a relationship. And by making offerings, how do you become close with somebody? Giving gifts is a huge part of that, right? Like if you meet somebody and you give them something, you instantly have a connection, or they give you something, or they give you some time, or they help you with something difficult. Nothing bonds people faster than that kind of thing. So making offerings in the morning, I think, is such an important and helpful way to make sure that you're cultivating your relationship to the Dharma for the day, making it your priority, my priority relationship. And that's part of what you talked about, this first excellency. These are skillful means for doing that. So you can do it just in the simplest of way, like Joe explained, just sit on your cushion and get in touch with that. Or you can elaborate and do all of these things on an external level that can be very helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm thinking about people who, don't and are trying to get started. But you're absolutely right. Once you have a place to sit, you need to sacralize that area. Even if that all that is a photograph of somebody you respect, Gandhi or freaking the Dalai Lama, whatever, the Buddha, a little statue. You can buy those statues everywhere now. You can buy them online, Etsy, whatever. You can buy them from our site. Oh, wait, what? No. Maybe if you're in Vajrayana, then tankas like Damien has, like this one, can be very helpful. And it's sort of it allows you to part from ordinary life right in the morning. You get up, and maybe I'm not saying you shouldn't make a cup of coffee or tea or whatever. That's perfectly fine. You got to do whatever you have to do to get motivated. This is not about self-sacrifice as much as motivation. So let's say you did that. You're sitting on your cushion. Before you sit on your cushion, if you have a picture or a table that you have set up as your shrine, and there's a way to do that, maybe we'll have a podcast about that. But even the simplest way, which is just a table with a candle on it, or a picture of whatever your refuge is, your teacher or whatever, this little statue of the Buddha, whatever. When you come up to that, you got to bow, right? You got to show this is my orientation. I am aiming at this. I'm not going to take refuge in samsara like I ordinarily do, nor am I going to do my practice just so I can be more peaceful so my boss doesn't hate me as much. Not like that. But down a new road. You have a new road. And so what I do is I make 4 prostrations, but usually it's 3 prostrations, right? But you make prostrations to your shrine. This is not idolatry. This is a prostration to what is most essential in you. This is a it's a reflexive prostration to that aspect of you that you're trying to bring out. The awareness aspect of us already exists. It's just covered over by so many thoughts and emotions, so much karma and plans, and so much selfishness, involuntary, not on purpose. You're not at fault, but it is now your responsibility. As soon as you get up and you walk in to your shrine room or your area or whatever, maybe you live in a studio, it's that corner, okay. then you make three prostrations or even just bow from the waist, showing respect. I know exactly when this took hold in my life. I was in maybe fifth grade and I wanted to study martial arts. And my dad had studied judo when he was in college. I didn't know anything about anything. And he said, there's a judo club downtown at the YMCA. We went down there. And I remember from the very first day, we all turned and faced the picture of Jigoro Kanu, the founder of judo, and we all bowed. And then the teacher turned around and we all bowed to him, the sensei. And I thought I was like, wow, I'm really doing it. I was in fifth grade. I was like, that was totally new, right? Of course, I was genuflecting in Catholic, in the Catholic Church, but it wasn't, I didn't understand it. And from that moment forth, I had this. And it's like you were saying, like, I am taking a new path. I am moving in a new direction. This is the thing. And then the rest of your life, the rest of your day, which is just the rest of your life, is influenced by that. You're like, well, I'm a practitioner, right? You don't have to do anything to do more than that. If you just sit down 30 seconds, you're still a practitioner and you did it. And you feel the wind at your back a little bit. At least I
Yeah.
do.
And such a good container for your day is just setting up your altar in the morning and taking it down in the evening. Just
Mm.
the having to do that, it doesn't take very long. But having that ritual really helps you set up your day with this bookends of like, and the way I look at my altar is kind of like a blessings generator, right? It's got
Yeah.
all these important sacred things for it. And when you make offerings to it and prostrate to it, you turn it on, right? You like turn on this generator and it starts like feeding you through the day, even when you're not paying attention to it anymore. It's feeding your life, your house, the people who are around you. These blessings are pouring out of it because it's activated by our devotion and by our commitment to the path. And so, even if you did nothing else, if you just set up the altar in the morning and bowed and then went through your day and then closed your altar at the end of the day and bowed, that I guarantee would begin to shift your relationship to everything else in your life.
Question. It, since people don't know necessarily what you mean, what do you mean? Does it mean you have to take the table down and stuff? No. What do you mean by setting up and closing down?
Okay, so yeah, like traditionally in Tibetan Buddhism, we offer offering bowls with have water, flowers, incense, light, perfume, food, and music, symbols for all those things. You don't have to do all those things, but you could light a candle and you could kind of one way, a couple ways to go about this, make sure there's a candle going all day long. And then at the end of the day, you put the candle out, that sort of thing. Or you just make an offering in the morning and then you make an offering in the evening. That could be another way of doing it. When you have the big elaborate Tibetan style, then you lay out all the offerings, like the incense, all these things, and then you put them all away at the end of the night and close the altar. And then when you go on retreat, you keep your altar open and you just change things out. So this is a way of starting to connect your psychology to this sacred world, and you can see how it immediately anchors your physical life in this sacred reality. So there's a lot of ways to do it, and as you said, we should do one on having a
Yeah.
shrine, right?
Yeah.
But if you just want to do something, you could just put a cookie on there in front of the Buddha and light a candle and light some incense. That would be perfectly lovely. And you could do, then at the end of the evening, you could eat the cookie as a blessing and kind of bow again before you go to bed. So from the most elaborate to the most simple, just bookending your day by your relationship to this altar can really help you sacralize your life.
Yeah. And just so we people leave this particular podcast with knowing like something they can do. Um, You can use real candles, and that's beautiful, but I wouldn't leave them burning all day just in case. So I personally, for years, have been using electric candles. They look really good, and I practice very early, so it's like nicely flickering. It's good. You can buy those on Amazon. So you just come in and you could turn them on. You could leave them on all day, or you could turn it off at the end of your session and do it again at night if you want. If you're interested in the offering bowls, there's usually seven. Sometimes they have individual offerings. Sometimes they just use water. You can use three bowls, seven bowls, one bowl, and each morning you would just put the bowl there and you would fill it up with fresh water and offer that to all the masters. May they have enough to drink. May this symbolize my offering. And at the end of the day, you pour that in a little bowl and you offer it in a plant. Don't pour it down the toilet or sink. You pour it in a plant or throw it outside and you turn the offering bowl over and the next morning you start again. And then you're bookending your day, as you said, with this sacralizing energy. And as you said, it is like a battery or like a machine. Your shrine is like a machine, like a kind of like a wheel. You're starting it in the morning. You have to try hard. You got to get up early and you got to sit still and you're turning, but it turns for quite a while after that.
Yeah.
And then sometime after, if you practice regularly, you'll go to crank it up and you'll realize it's still turning. The energy is going. I went and visited Damien. He had me stay at his house when I was out in Seattle not that long ago over the summer, and I could feel the freaking like a heat coming off that thing. He's got a big fancy shrine. It felt great, and I'm sure it must permeate your condo building. It must. You know what I mean? People, whether they know you or don't know you, there's a certain kind of energy that comes off of doing that stuff. And you can feel it too. You can offer
Yeah.
incense. If you don't like incense, it's okay. You don't have to. You can make elaborate offerings, as you said, or very simple. One bowl of water, 7 bowls of water, no bowls of water, one stick of incense, a dozen, 10 candles, one candle, but that even just one prostration or one bow is enough. Be like,
Yeah.
I am setting out in a new path, not completely at the mercy of my circumstances or my emotions, a new path toward the good of all beings. That's the basic thing, right? So that's all the preliminary, the first excellence.
Yeah, and one more note on the shrine before we have a whole episode on that is you can put on there what you want to plant seeds on, right? So like it's like a garden or a machine, like you said. And so the different statues they represent or tonkas or whatever, they represent different qualities of Buddhahood that you are working to foster in yourself. So you get to have choice about that. Like you really dig Tara and you're like, I want to be like Tara. So putting Tara on your altar and making offerings to her every day starts to build that relationship. And you start to become more like Tara every day. And Tara starts to bless you and your environment every day. So that's some of the fun of this. Like you really get to like choose and you get to design and if your teacher gives you something special, then that's an important thing to go on the altar because that has extra blessings that connects you not only to the whatever they gave you, but also to them as your teacher. So this is how you can really look at all of this and really see it as something that's really supportive, not some another task that you have to do.
Yeah.
It's something that you feel inspired by.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can put whatever on your altar that or your shrine table that makes you happy. Statues, tankas, photographs, whatever. You keep it a
Yeah.
little clean. It's like a little corner of excellence in your life. No matter how chaotic the rest of your life is, you're like, I still have this. My little merit generating machine. So that's definitely the right thing. But to get back on the track of like your daily practice, you can do it in 1 minute, you can do it in 1 hour, whatever. You got the first excellence, which for non-Buddhists or like people who haven't taken refuge or aren't comfortable with that, I'm very lucky. I'm going to do this for the good of everyone. That covers everything.
Yeah.
For Buddhists, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I generate bodhicitta. I'm making up your mind, the regular Buddhist stuff. But either way, that's all the first excellence. Then the second excellence is the excellent main part, free from concepts. This you have to learn from your teacher or whatever, wherever you're studying or books you're reading. All you are really doing is thinking, I'm going to do this for the good of everyone, and then doing that. Whether it's shamatha, one point of focus, body scanning, vipassana, whatever, any kind of practice, yogic practices, holding your breath, you're practicing togal, whatever, that part should be as free from conceptual analysis as you are capable of being, right? And usually for most of us, the actual meditation state does not last very long. So you do it over and over. Like drops of water filling up a big bucket, right? One drop at a time. You let be. You get distracted. Oh, yeah. You let be. You do that 10 times. You do that 1,000 times. You sit for 1 minute. You sit for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. If you do that part, then that generates a certain energy. And that energy is then dedicated at the end is the third excellence. And that's a complete session of meditation. Just those three things. Don't think you got to do this 1 hour. You literally could do it 1 minute and you'd be fine. You come in, you make a little bow, You sit down, you think, I'm going to do this for the good of everyone. I'm lucky to be able to do it. I'm going to do it. May all beings be peaceful like this. Then you show them how to be peaceful. Ah, ah, ah. Hey, it's time to get up. Then you get it. Then you dedicate the merit. You can do that with a famous prayer by this merit, or you can do it in your own way, in your own language, thinking whatever goodness has been created here, may all share in it. That's all it takes. And then you did it. You freaking checked that box. You're on the path. Nobody who practiced, people might have practiced longer, but you're in the category of those who meditated. And that feels good, don't you think, Damien?
Right. And I want to recommend for people too, the other benefit of having that bookend at the end of the night is to also start to look at this as your whole day is your session, right? We want to, in addition to doing whatever practice we're doing on the cushion, we want to preserve our mindfulness and our loving kindness and compassion through the day. And if you're trying to do that, then you are practicing all day.
Yes.
And then, in Tibetan, they call it a Thun, right? That's like a meditation session. So you want to have a 24/7 Thun. That's the goal. You want this to bleed. You don't want to, I've met people who their Dharma practice stays on their cushion. And then it doesn't come away from there. It doesn't inflect the rest of their life at all. It's just like something they do and then they have their life. We don't want to be like that. We want our session to be our life. So finding a way to draw it out. When you get up from your cushion, don't go so fast. Draw it into your day as you start to go make breakfast or go take care of the kids or whatever. Try and draw that thread of mindfulness into whatever you're doing. And now your whole life is becoming your practice session. And this is when it really takes off, because if you do this over years and months and you extend the amount of time you sit, eventually you can't tell when you're practicing and when you're not. It's all one thing. And that's really when I think the Dharma has the most benefit, right? When it's really all the time.
You're living it then. You're living it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We should actually have a session about how to carry it through your day. And we can talk about that too.
Yeah. And I want to say that just one note about that. The key to integration is daily practice, right? There's some people who try to think I can just integrate and that's all. In my experience, that doesn't work. You need to anchor that morning, and even if it's just for 1 minute, like Joe said, even if it's just a short period of time, we need that dedicated, could you have a relationship with somebody you never sat down and had a conversation with? If you never connect, if you would, that wouldn't be a relationship, right? If you just wave to them as you walk by, that's not a relationship. You got to spend some time together. And that's a good way
to integrate. If you don't have you need formal and informal practice sessions. The goal is to do what Damien said and have it be indistinguishable. But for all of us, until our minds are very, very pure, and we never go away from the view, and I don't know anybody like that, then we need formal sessions too. So, and those should be bookended with, making aspirations, taking refuge, and dedicating the merit. Even if you do intend to come back and practice, still dedicate the merit whenever you have the chance.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I look at it is like you have your whole day is one container with the three excellencies, but then you have lots of little three excellencies all through the day that are contained in this big container. And that way your life is becoming practice, right? That way everything, and that's, you also find that some of that integration, that you can 1 minute here, 1 minute there, just totally. It doesn't have to be this big elaborate thing. And that way you can feel like you're building your relationships with Dharma. Maybe just before we close, we talk a little bit about how you pushed it, right? You and I both practice a lot. How did you get there?
Well, I think it does grow on you, but you do have to. I found that my life arranged itself to allow that. It's a long time ago now, but I've had several step ups at different times where for many years, I was practicing about an hour and I thought, oh, that's pretty good. And it was pretty good. But then I realized it just wasn't practicing enough to get enough. I needed to do more. So then I was like, well, let's see. And then I went through a period of getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning because of Dzogchen Rinpoche for 3 or 4 years. And that is intense. But then you have a lot of time. I got to do something because it's still dark at 6, and you're like, been up in there for 3 hours. It allowed me to have more time. But um, yeah, I don't know. I think that, if you can go, I guess the first way to do it is to see, can I make it a month without missing? And if you start to make it a month or 2 months, then you can make a vow like, I'm not gonna not meditate. I'm gonna meditate no matter what. And once you do that, then things in your life will respond to that. And because that's a powerful vow to make. Don't do that right in the beginning. Get a habit going. More likely to succeed. I say to everyone, and I tell myself, it's much more powerful to meditate 1 minute every day for a week than it is to meditate only on Saturday for 3 hours. Your mind needs there is only today. You gotta practice today. It doesn't matter how long. If you do that regularly, I think as long as you feel, as long as you have enough time in the morning, and if you don't, you need to just get up a little earlier. Then it will naturally grow. That's been my experience. To go from like sitting an hour to sitting like more like 3 hours, you really have to have a life that will support that, and that's something you just have to make aspirations, and then hopefully things will arrange themselves that you can do that. I don't have
Yeah.
any other secrets, unfortunately.
Well, and the other thing that I learned from you and that has been really helpful for me is to cycle through practices. So, everybody who's in the Vajrayana starts off with Nundro, so you go through and you accumulate your Nundro. That's what you spend your time doing in the mornings. And then once you do that, then you do the three roots practice and Yidam practice, etc. But having dedicated chunks of way of like accomplishing, right? Where you do all the mantras where it's 100,000 per syllable or whatever. If you're a more experienced practitioner, this is extremely helpful for me. It has been, okay, I'm going to accomplish this sadhana. And then you feel like you did something, right? You spend like 6 months doing this every day. And then you get to go like have a little fire puja or something at the end. And you feel like you really accomplished something. And this really helps you. For me, it really got my juice going a lot more.
No question. Yeah, we can talk more about that for advanced practitioner. Advanced meaning people who are really into it. If you are doing sadhana practices, cycling through them can be valuable. I know in the ancient India, they were supposed to, you only had one yidam, and that was your main thing for your whole life. We are so short, or I should say me, my focus is so short. My ability to stay on one topic is so short. For me, it's better. Every year I try to do a cycle of Vajrakilaya, some Vajrakilaya sadhana that I have, dispel some obstacles, and say that mantra 100,000 times per syllable. Then maybe, it is time. Tara is calling me, and I do a little Tara or whatever. And you do feel, if you do that, oh, wow, I really did that. I did that. Wow, now I'm going to do this. I'm doing a new practice, not new to me. I did it once before, but not for some years. It feels so good to revisit that, and I can see my plan, and it makes you psyched. Staying psyched. That's probably what you're really saying. You got to figure out how to get psyched. So I'll say one more thing about your practice sessions. I don't know if we went over, but just in case we didn't, try to finish your sitting while you still feel like you should sit longer. That is really important. I learned that from Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtso. If you finish when you feel like you still got not just more in you, but you want to do more, you'll be anxious to start again. Well, if you wait till it goes the other side, which can sometimes be like only 30 seconds later, then you're like, I'm glad I got that done. That's not a good attitude. So when it's going really well, and you're like, I've been sitting 10 minutes, I could probably sit another 5 minutes, but I'm not gonna. You're like, and there's some part of you wants to, and that helps you also meditate during the day. Have something to integrate because that energy is still high, and then you're looking forward to your next session, and that's awesome.
And we can do a whole nother session on this too. But the part of the accumulations and working on it is the signs that you'll see things in your life that are letting you know, hey, it's working. You're connecting to this practice. And that, like Joe said, being psyched. If you take nothing else from this episode about how to build the daily practice, is make it something you want to do. Make it exciting, make it something you're stoked about. That's part of the beauty of Tibetan Buddhism is we have so many methods. So you find something that you're into, to help juice up whatever you're doing, and then it doesn't become this chore. Because I started off doing, shamatha vipassana, 45 minutes a day. It was painful, and it was valuable, and I saw results, but sitting for 45 minutes staring at a wall with no anything else was really hard for my ADHD brain. It was really hard to do. And I wouldn't recommend people start like that now, because it could have easily turned me off, right? It was a hard thing to do. Vajrayana, we get to like seduce ourselves, right? We get to magnetize ourselves onto building this daily practice. And then, we can build it up or shrink it down depending on where you are on the path. But just having that daily session, like you said, is so important, just every day, because we only have today. And, really thinking about maybe the 4 thoughts a little bit, like today might be my last day, right? and
so die on a day you didn't meditate. You've been practicing every day for 12 years, and then that day you're like, fuck it, and then you get hit by a car. That would be such a bummer, kind of embarrassment. So then you got to do it every day. You got to do it.
Yep. It's like wearing clean underwear, they say, because like if you get in a car accident, you want to make sure you have clean underwear, when you go to the hospital. Well, thank you again, all of you listeners. I hope this was helpful. We'll return to the many different topics that came up during this, like your shrine and looking for signs and these sort of things, which will be fun to talk about. But thank you for watching. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.